4 months ago in Auckland, Alexeala held match point against Wang Xinyu. She had broken back, CLA behind, and stood one clean strike away from a career-defining semi-final victory. She did not convert. Wang rattled off 5 of the next 6 games and walked away with the win. That single unconverted opportunity has been sitting in Eala's memory ever since. And tomorrow at the Foro Italico in Rome, she gets the chance to do something about it. This is not the kind of rematch that happens by accident. The draw placed her into a first-round battle against Magdalena Frech, the world number 45 from Poland. And she had to survive a 2-hour 3-set dogfight to reach this point. She did. She won 6-0, 3-6, 6-4, coming back from a breakdown in the decider to seal the match. Wang meanwhile sat comfortably in the bracket with a first round by waiting to see who emerged. Now she knows the Filipina is coming back for her. And this time the surface beneath their feet is entirely different. Let me walk you through what makes this matchup so tactically fascinating and why Rome's clay courts might just rewrite the script that Auckland's hard courts already drafted. In January, the physics favored Wang. Hard courts rewarded her massive flat serve. She cracked 10 aces to Eala's 2 and allowed her heavy ground strokes to skid through low and fast. She could bully the rallies with pace. She could lean on her 182 centimeters frame and simply swing over Eala in exchanges where both players were hitting from neutral positions. But clay changes the equation in ways that specifically target Wang's strengths while partially neutralizing the gap in their serving firepower. The slower bounce on clay gives the returner extra milliseconds. Not many, maybe 50 to 100 additional milliseconds of ball flight between bounce and contact point. But for a player like Eala, whose return game is the centerpiece of her competitive identity, that fraction of additional time transforms an unreachable flat serve into one she can read and redirect. In Auckland, Wang won 65% of her first serve points. On clay, where that same serve loses pace after the bounce and sits up just slightly higher, Eala's ability to neutralize it goes from marginal to functional. That is not a small tactical adjustment. That is the difference between getting broken twice in a match and getting broken 5 times. Here is what Eala has been building toward all spring. After the hard court season ended, she flew back to Majorca and embedded herself at the Rafa Nadal Academy. Tony Nadal personally oversaw her initial clay court training sessions. The work focused on 2 specific areas: movement patterns and ball control in extended rallies. These are the exact deficiencies that clay exposes. You cannot fake footwork on dirt the way you sometimes can on hard courts, because the surface punishes lazy positioning by making recovery impossible. Eala herself said she felt she was moving better than last year, and the early return supported that claim. She beat Julia Grabher in her first clay match of the season at the Lindt Open, serving at 60% first serve accuracy and saving 9 of 10 break points. But then the results got messy. She lost to Leylah Fernandez 6-1, 6-4 at Stuttgart. She beat Anastasia Pavlyuchanova in Madrid's first round, then got demolished by Elise Mertens 2-6, 1-6 in the second. Those scores are not encouraging reading. A 6-1, 6-4 loss and a 2-6, 1-6 loss in back-to-back tournaments suggest a player whose clay adaptation is still fragile, still liable to crack under sustained pressure from experienced clay movers. Mertens in particular carved Eala apart with slice backhands that stayed low and forced the Filipina to generate her own pace from difficult contact points. That specific vulnerability, the difficulty of manufacturing power from below the net cord on a surface that does not give you free pace, remains a live concern going into the Wang match. And yet, the FCK match told a different story. Down 1-3 in the third set against a player ranked 3 spots below her, a found. She extended rallies. She moved FCK laterally and waited for the errors to come. She broke back in the 6th game and then reeled off 3 consecutive games to close the set. What mattered was not the quality of individual shots. It was the patience. Last year in Rome, Eala lost her opening match to Marta Kostuk 6-0, 6-1. That scoreline reflected a player who panicked on clay, who rushed every point because she did not trust her legs to survive extended baseline exchanges. The Frech comeback, particularly the way she accepted the rallies and competed point by point without forcing low percentage shots, suggests that something fundamental has shifted in her relationship with this surface. Now, let us talk about Wang Xinyu because she arrives in Rome carrying her own set of unresolved questions. Her 2026 has been productive but punctuated by troubling collapses. She reached the final at the ASB Classic in Auckland, losing to Elina Svitolina. She beat Angelina Kalina at the Australian Open. She has a 15-11 record and has earned over $500,000. But the clay transition has been brutal. At a WTA event in La Bispel d'Empera in late April, she lost to Elena Kariva, a player ranked well below her. More telling was her Madrid campaign. She won her opener against Chloe Paquette in 3 sets, then collapsed against Laura Sampson, losing the final set 6-0 without winning a single game. Sampson is ranked 171st in the world. When a top 35 player loses a set 0-6 to someone ranked outside the top 150, the explanation is rarely tactical. It is usually physical or psychological. And in Wang's case, there is recent history to support the physical theory. She retired against Sarana Circe during the clay swing, unable to complete a match. Both players enter this meeting carrying damage. Eala's damage is structural. The serve remains a liability with 62 double faults against only 19 aces across her 2026 season. That ratio is among the worst in the top 50. Wang's damage is more immediate and harder to predict. She may be fully healthy, or she may be one extended rally away from something giving way again. Neither player can be certain what version of herself she will bring to court whatever Roma assigns them on Thursday. The tactical blueprint for Eala is straightforward to articulate, but demanding to execute. She needs to make the match long, not individual points, the match itself. Every set that goes deep, every game that goes to deuce, every extra 10 minutes on court tilts the probability in her direction because Wang's recent pattern has been implosion under accumulated physical stress. In Auckland, Wang needed the third set to finally put Eala away, and she did so largely on the strength of her serve bailing her out of trouble. On clay, that escape hatch becomes narrower. The serve will still be a weapon. Wang is tall. She generates serious racket head speed. She can hit spots, but the return of serve becomes more of a 50-50 exchange when the surface slows the ball. Eala needs to make Wang play, make her construct points rather than end them, and trust that the Italian clay will reward the player who is willing to compete on more shots per rally. For Wang, the path is the opposite. She wants short points. She wants to step inside the baseline on Eala's second serve and drive it into the open court before the rally even develops a rhythm. She wants to use her height advantage on serve, those flat first serves at over 170 km per hour to generate free points and avoid the kind of grinding baseline exchanges where Eala's anticipation and court coverage can neutralize raw power. On hard courts in Auckland, Wang found ways to shorten points. She won 53% of her service points across the 3 sets. On clay, she will need to maintain that ratio while dealing with the slower surface response time that robs her biggest weapon of its bite. If she can serve at 70+% first serve accuracy and win close to 65% of those points, she controls the match regardless of what Eala does from the baseline. What makes this particular venue interesting is that Rome's clay, while slower than hard courts, plays faster than Roland Garros or traditional European red clay because the Italian Federation maintains their courts with slightly less water and the balls used tend to be marginally livelier. This means Wang does not face the worst case scenario for her game style. She is not playing on heavy, wet, slow Parisian dirt that would completely neutralize her power. She is playing on medium-paced clay that will reduce her advantages without eliminating them entirely. That is actually the worst possible outcome for Eala because it means the Filipina cannot fully rely on the surface to do the neutralizing work for her. She still has to compete shot for shot, and she still has to deal with Wang's power even if that power arrives with slightly less sting. The Auckland match offers the most relevant tactical data. Let me pull out the key numbers. In the first set, which Eala won 7-5, she was aggressive on return, winning 50% of Wang's second serve points. She was also clinical on break points, converting 3 of 6 opportunities. But in the third set, everything inverted. Wang elevated her first serve percentage to nearly 79% and won 66% of those points. Eala's second serve return advantage disappeared as Wang started targeting the Filipina's backhand with wide serves that dragged her off the court. By the time the set reached 4-4, Eala was chasing rather than dictating. Wang broke once and served it out. The lessons from Auckland are clear. Eala can compete with Wang and even dominate her in stretches, but she cannot afford to let her intensity dip even fractionally in the middle of the match. The 5-7, 7-5, 6-4 scoreline tells you that this was not a case of Wang being too good. It was a case of Eala being inconsistent across the full duration. On clay, the match will likely be slower and longer, which means the consistency question becomes even more urgent. Can Eala sustain her level for potentially 2.5 hours rather than the hour and 40 minutes the Auckland match lasted? There is a psychological dimension worth naming. Eala has now won her first match in Rome after losing 6-0, 6-1 here last year. That is not nothing. The difference between a player who believes she can compete at a WTA 1000 on clay and one who fears the surface is enormous, and it shows up in risk tolerance on big points. In the FCK match, Eala went for her shots at 4-3 in the third and at 5-4 serving for the match. She did not retreat into passive rallying and hope for errors. She competed aggressively because she trusted her legs. If she brings that same trust into the Wang match, the opening set becomes genuinely unpredictable. Wang seeding 31st gives her no practical advantage other than that first round bye, which meant she has had extra rest while Eala spent 2 hours and 7 minutes scrapping on court today. That freshness factor is real. Eala will have less than 48 hours to recover before facing a taller, fresher, more powerful opponent who she has never beaten. Against that, Eala carries the rhythm advantage. She has already played a competitive match on these specific courts, adjusted to the specific bounce and conditions, and felt what the ball does in Rome's Mayweather. Wang has to find that calibration in real time during the match itself. For anyone wanting to catch this match, the broadcast landscape is straightforward. In the United States, Tennis Channel carries full coverage of the Italian Open, and it is available through streaming platforms including Fubo, DirecTV, and Sling TV with the Sports Extra ad-on. In the United Kingdom, Sky Sports has the rights. In Australia, beIN Sports is your destination. German-speaking viewers can find it on Sky Sport in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. Canadian viewers have TSN and TVA Sports as options. For viewers in the Philippines, and there will be millions following this one, TAP DMV carries the WT coverage across much of Asia and Oceania. DUN and WTA TV provide streaming access. In Italy itself, Sky Sport Italia and Super Tennis carry the home tournament. In France, beIN Sports has rights. Spanish viewers can find it on Tennis Channel Europe. Across the Middle East and much of Africa, DUN carries WTA coverage. The match is scheduled for Thursday, May 7th, as part of the WTA's second round with play beginning in the early morning hours in Rome and continuing through the day. Let me come back to the tennis because I want to land on something specific about what this match means for both players. Wang is in a peculiar position for a 33-ranked player. She has not won a title all season despite reaching a final in January. Her clay results have been abysmal, and she is coming into a match where her opponent has a genuine tactical grievance from their only previous meeting. Eala held match point in Auckland and lost. That is the kind of memory that either paralyzes you in the rematch or focuses you with absolute clarity. Given what we saw from Eala in the third set against Freck today, the composure, the refusal to panic at 1-3 down, there is reason to believe she arrives Thursday in the focused camp rather than the paralyzed one. Wang's best chance is to impose herself physically from the start, serve big, hit early, and try to take the racket out of Eala's hands before the Filipina can settle into her returning rhythm. If the first set goes cleanly Wang's way, say 6-3 or 6-4, the match probably follows the Auckland template. But if Eala stays close, if she can steal a break early and force Wang to play from behind, the dynamics shift radically. Wang on clay chasing a match is a very different animal than Wang on clay controlling a match. The Samson collapse in Madrid showed us what happens when things stop going her way on the surface. She lost 9 consecutive games. That kind of meltdown does not happen to a player with deep clay confidence. It happens to someone who is tolerating the surface rather than trusting it. Eala, for all her clay struggles, may actually trust the surface more than Wang does right now. That is the paradox of this matchup. The player ranked lower with the weaker serve with the worst record on clay across her career might actually feel more at home on this specific surface at this specific moment than the higher-ranked opponent sitting across the net. Tony Nadal's fingerprints are on that. The work in Mallorca, the belief that clay rewards the player who is willing to stay in the fight. Eala has absorbed that lesson intellectually, and today she demonstrated it physically. Thursday will tell us which version of each player shows up. The beauty of a rematch with this particular emotional architecture is that both women know exactly what happened last time. Both know what they did right and what they did wrong. And both know the other one remembers too. There is no mystery, no scouting advantage, no confusion about identity. This is just two tennis players for months older on a different surface in a different country settling an unfinished conversation. For Eala, it is an opportunity to prove that Auckland was a learning experience rather than a ceiling. For Wang, it is a chance to demonstrate that her recent clay struggles were circumstantial rather than fundamental. Only one of them gets to carry that proof forward into the third round where Elena Rybakina likely waits. That is enough. That is all any sport needs to be compelling. Two people with something real at stake. A court between them and the complete uncertainty of what happens.